Hello, thank you for participating in the second outreach phase of the Multi-Use Pathway Feasibility Study along State Route or SR94 in Jamul, where you will find background information, project needs and benefits, and a status update on this study. Some background on this study. This project consists of approximately 7 miles of a multi-use path along SR94 between Jamacha Road and Campo Road and towards the Fish and Wildlife Reserve to the east of the corridor. Through this study, it is intended to address a missing active transportation link by looking at multi-use path alternatives to increase access to key community destinations and improve safety for community members of the Jamul-Dulzura area. A multi-use path, also known as a shared-use path or Class 1 bikeway, is a path that is physically separated from motor vehicle traffic and is used by people biking, walking, and rolling. The feasibility study consists of the following study elements: review existing conditions, development of opportunities and constraints for the path, stakeholder engagement and public outreach. The current phase, concept development and analysis, and future phases include final alternative alignment selection and action plan of next steps. SR94 is a corridor that has been identified for transportation improvements in the County of San Diego Trails Master Plan and the 2018 Interregional Tribal Transportation Strategy, or ITTS. The ITTS identified SR94 as a major commuter facility that provides access into and out of the Jamul-Dulzura area. As previously mentioned, SR94 has been identified as a corridor that should provide increased mobility options, especially for people biking, walking, and rolling. The goal is to plan for a more bike-friendly and pedestrian-friendly community to help resolve multiple complex and interrelated issues, such as traffic congestion, air pollution, climate change, public health, and livability. In summer 2020, 2 interactive map surveys were sent out to members of the Jamul-Dulzura community and received over 350 responses with feedback on this corridor study, and held roundtable discussions with key stakeholders such as local businesses and related agencies. Key takeaways from the survey. About 85% of survey respondents identified themselves as either a parent, resident, student, and/or commuter. In addition, over 75% of survey respondents travel along the corridor daily. Also, 75% of survey respondents will use a new pathway along SR94 at least once a week. The heat map below indicates propensity of where people would utilize a multi-use trail along this corridor. The first map on the left indicates that the westerly end of the corridor is a useful path location. The middle map shows where most people frequently visited places were located. And the map on the right shows where people indicated unsafe areas along the corridor. Alignment Alternative Analysis Overview. The project team looked at the corridor as 3 different segments, as each segment is faced with unique opportunities and constraints. Potential path alignments on both the north and south sides of SR94 were considered. Starting at the west terminus is the YMCA to Steele Canyon Road, which is in close proximity to a multi-use tenant shopping center. Phase 2, identified as Steele Canyon Road to Lyons Valley Road, has more cross streets and local businesses are located along this segment. And at the east terminus is Phase 3, Lyons Valley Road to the Fish and Wildlife Reserve, where one would encounter steep hillside, natural terrain, and residential homes. As previously mentioned, a multi-use trail or Class 1 facility is physically separated from motor vehicle traffic and is intended for people walking, biking, and rolling. Based on feedback received by the community, there is a desire to accommodate equestrian users into this study, and 2 concepts were developed by the project team. Option A is a traditional Class 1 facility with 10-foot paved surface and 2-foot shoulders on either side. And option B includes a Class 1 facility and a 7-foot soft surface equestrian trail to accommodate equestrian users. For each option, the study team reviewed the corridor broken down into 3 separate segments and analyzed 7 different categories to determine a preferred alignment. Some of these criterion include less impacts to right-of-way and environmental impacts, to name a few. This analysis also looked at opportunities to include path amenities, such as natural connections to other trails, shading, and access to other destinations. This methodology was used to make a recommendation on a preferred alignment location between north or south of SR 94. We would like to get your feedback on the preferred alignment for this corridor. Some of these segments have equal opportunities on both the north and south side. This is true for segment 1 from YMCA to Steele Canyon Road. The north side would have direct access to Steele Canyon High School, while the south side can leverage the use of the existing Steele Canyon Bridge used for recreational purposes and has direct access to hiking trails. Please let us know your feedback on segment 1 using the survey link. Based on opportunities and constraints analysis, it was determined that the south side of segment 2 would be the most feasible, as well as the north side of segment 3. On the right is a typical cross-section of a Class 1 facility including 10-foot paved surface and 2-foot shoulders on both sides, and a traffic barrier to further separate trail users from vehicle traffic. This is the most feasible option to develop throughout the study area. Due to limited right-of-way throughout the corridor, a separate soft surface for equestrian uses is recommended, but is not feasible within the project scope at this time. On the left, the cross-sections reflect the improvements with the Class 1 multi-use trail on either the north or south side. On the right is a typical cross-section of existing conditions with a soft path next to SR 94. It is noted that the south side can accommodate a multi-use trail on one side and a soft surface trail for equestrian users on the opposite side of SR 94. On the left are proposed improvements for a multi-use path. The north proposal requires excavation into the hillside and retaining walls to accommodate a paved surface, whereas the south side, also the preferred alignment for this segment, requires right-of-way acquisitions in order to construct a multi-use path. On the right is an existing typical cross-section of segment 2. This section has steep hillside on the north and constrained right-of-way on the south. These sections on the left are the proposed improvements for a multi-use path. The north side, also the preferred alignment for this corridor, would require excavation and retaining walls to build a comfortable multi-use path. The south side would require right-of-way acquisitions as well as excavation into the hillside and retaining walls. The multi-use path would be located closer to SR 94 with only a 2-foot barrier to the travel lane. On the right side is an existing typical section of segment 3. Notably, both sides of the corridor have steep hillside and mostly right-of-way constraints on the south. The project team developed preliminary concepts for key locations, as this project is located largely within Caltrans's right-of-way. Some key project features include installing pedestrian signals with street light to increase visibility for people crossing the street, construction of a 12-foot paved multi-use path and connection to the Steele Canyon Bridge, resurface the existing dirt area and stripe parking spaces, construct a retaining wall, and relocate the existing power line. Next steps for the project team include review survey responses and make thoughtful modifications to the concepts, followed by developing the final SR 94 Multi-Use Pathway Feasibility Study by summarizing the following: recommended alignments and cross-sections, phasing recommendations, potential amenities, estimated cost to complete the project, and potential funding sources. How can you shape the project? The project team is requesting your feedback. Let us know what amenities you would like to see on the future path. If the project is phased, which segment would be the most important to you? Do you have any other comments, suggestions, or items you'd like to share? Complete the online survey using the link in the email.